On this episode of the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, we've got, a whole bunch of friends in the house. We are here at CampWell X Sacred Playgrounds, this event that we've been working on together with the Alliance for Camp Health. And anytime we got a chance to gather a group of camp leaders, it's fun to sit down behind the mic and hear some of their camp stories. We're going to talk about some of the things that can happen, some of the things that they do with and in their summer staff to build some really important skills. Welcome to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. We're behind the mic and behind the research, turning insights into impact and numbers into North Stars for camping ministries and the intrepid leaders that serve them. Each episode blends thoughtful theology, compelling data, and actionable wisdom, all to help camps thrive today, tomorrow, and for years to come. I'm your host and producer, Jared Rendell, Director of Innovation and Communication for Sacred Playgrounds. Joining me is Director and Lead Researcher, Jake Sorensen, a PhD-level scholar, experienced ministry practitioner, and the founder of Sacred Playground. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, the support button to help make these episodes happen, and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Sacred Playgrounds, and always at sacredplaygrounds.com. Explore with us what God might have in store at your Sacred Playground. Welcome to the playground, everyone. Here we are. Everybody, say hi, guys. Hello. Say hi. Hello. I hope that sounds so great on the other end. Jared here. We are around the table with five good friends. And like I said, we're here together. We are at Camp Wapo in Amery, Wisconsin. And we've gathered some camp leaders here to train ourselves at this CampWell event that you maybe have been hearing about. We talked about it a bit on the podcast. And so they're learning a lot about wellness and well-being in our multi-audience camp context. So we've got a lot of things to cover over the next couple days. And so as we get started, we said, hey, we're going to hit go on a microphone here, and we've got some things to talk about because we've got this great captive group of friends to learn from and hear from. So here's our plan. We are getting, we're in the beginning of March here, and lots of you are finishing, you're finishing up, hopefully recruiting, and you're starting to work with these staff. And so we're thinking ahead about summer staff now and what is going on in them and with them, and what are some of the things that we do during our summers that help build these really important life things in them. A couple of years ago, we put out this thing called Camp Builds. And Camp Builds, we've talked about it on here a handful, but in case you've missed that, the quick version, we were hearing from like career center folks that they weren't really feeling like they were confident in recommending camp as a good thing for the summer of their students. And as camp folks, I wish you could see everybody because they're all shaking their heads right now around the table, right? Because we know that camp does build some really incredible things, some really incredible skills through the experiences that we have. And you've all got, thoughts and ideas and stories about that. We're going to hear some of theirs today because hearing from and learning from each other, crowdsourcing these things is a really powerful way to learn something new, to grow, to stretch ourselves, to think differently. So that's the hope for today. So we're going to start, though, by giving them a chance to introduce ourselves, which is our quick camp question. What is your camp story?
Quick camp question.
Well, hey, folks, I'm Jess Gulseth, and I'm the Executive Director at Red Willow Ministries in Eastern North Dakota, and I've been in that role since March of 24. And I think this is important to note that I get to wear many hats in my role as an Executive Director. You might have a specific understanding of executive directors, but I get to do all the things. I have a small team, and so I get to dabble in everything from executive director to cleaning toilets. And my camp story is I had the best recruiter, like the recruiter of your dreams, a person who grew up going to camp and was my across the hall in college roommate. And she worked on me for 6 months. She was like, you really have to go to camp. You have to go to camp. It's like the best. It's so fun. I've spent all of my summers there, blah, blah, blah. And she convinced me. And so I worked at camp in college and did so for 5 summers, and then worked 1 year year round, and then left for a little bit and have come back to that exact camp. And I hope to be there for a long time.
What's up? I'm Aiden Tack. I'm from Covenant Point Bible Camp in the UP of Michigan, Iron River. And I am one of the camp interns. Not too crazy of a name, but interns kind of do whatever. We, like you said, clean toilets, we fix gators, we punch holes in the ice, we set stuff up, we program. And my kind of role as an intern right now, I went to school for a lot of like film and television stuff. So I'm doing a lot of media purposes, marketing and filming. And I'm currently digitizing 100 years of camp history from photos and videos right now. So it's pretty cool. We are currently in our 100th year anniversary right now, which is pretty epic. So big year, big plans. It's a big party this summer, which is awesome. And my camp story mainly started from my old youth pastor in Rockford, Illinois, called Anthony Clerkin. He was like, yo, you want to go to a camp in the winter? I was like, sure, I got nothing else going on. Tugged me up there. And ever since I was there, I fell in love with it. So many things clicked and made sense in my mind, all the friends that I made. And I've been there for the past 5 summers, and I'm finishing off my internship since I was there in September, and going to finish out this summer as trips guide and leaving camp, not forever, but for like the last summer staff position, which is kind of cool. But yeah, honestly, grateful for every experience there.
Hey everyone, my name is Henry Santelman, he, him. I serve as the program director at Luther Crest Bible Camp in Alexandria, Minnesota, which is kind of up north, as we like to say in Minnesota. It's central Minnesota, which is just the best job ever. My camp story in a nutshell, I was about 6 years old, and my home church, Women of the ELCA group, the Welka group, sponsored my mom to take her 3 kids to camp with her. So starting at 6 years old, I went to camp on the recommendation of my home church, and I went every year after that, just found my spot, felt called into the life of the church through camp, and then just have always been called back into that space. So, through college, it was being called back as a summer staff year after year, which helped me discern my way into a ministry career. Then I had the blessing of being able to go off and study religion at Yale Divinity in Connecticut, and somehow found my way back to camp as a chaplain. I'm doing some seminary internship in a couple of camp spaces, and then post-seminary wound up back at the same camp I started at, good old Luther Crest. I'm serving as interim and now full-time program director for the last 3 years or so.
Hey, I'm Jesse Klosterbor, Executive Director at Sugar Creek Bible Camp in southwestern Wisconsin, up in the Big Hills, and serve as director there the past 6 years or so. But as a camper, this will date myself a little bit, but back in the 80s, it was fun, loved the outdoor, but, I kind of struggled a little bit. I was pretty shy and kind of stayed away for a few years. But then summer after 10th grade year, I think it was the Holy Spirit. Something got into me. I think I shocked my parents when I said, hey, I want to go to camp for 4 weeks for their leadership training program. They're kind of a junior staff. And so best 4 weeks of my life. And it was super fun, and did that again, and then ended up working every summer in college, the old story, at the camp as a camp counselor. That clarified for me my call to help people and work in those groups. So I became a group therapist and individual youth counselor for actually it was adjudicated high school delinquent boys in a residential treatment facility. Say that 10 times fast. And, pretty intense. But the best moments there in that social service scenario were like an average day at camp. And the magic really happened, and the healing flowed, and you could see lives were changing. And I thought, man. And so after a few years of that, about 20 years ago now, I got back into Lutheran Outdoor Ministry full-time as a program director. And since then, I've served for the big decentralized camps of the Midwest, and as program director, development director, now exec. But throughout the whole thing, just grateful for a front row seat to what God is doing there. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Hazel Beniski, program director at Camp Wapo. I started this position in September of 2025, and it feels like a dream still. I am a lifer at Camp Wapo. Started here all the way back in first grade, and all the way through high school, I came as a camper for the best week of my life. I got to see my brother work on summer staff, and see how it just changed his life with lifelong friendships, communication skills, all that kind of good stuff. I knew from a young age that I was going to work on staff here, that I wanted it to change my life as well. And so when I could apply, I did. And unfortunately, that was COVID year. So I didn't get that. No camp. But I was hired the year after. I worked 4 summers on summer staff. It did indeed change my life. I thought privately, not really knowing where my life was going to go, I thought privately maybe I could make camp a full-time thing. And it did. God worked in a crazy way. And my executive director said, hey, we need to talk about fall and future opportunities. And I said, okay. And then we did. And then she offered me a job. And here I am.
Thanks, you guys. Anytime that anybody's gotten to come on as a guest, it's been great to hear these camp stories, because we can see ourselves in them, right? I can hear myself in those. So thank you guys for sharing yours. We appreciate it. So here we go. We're talking summer staff, and we know that summer staff are the heart of our ministries, right? They're the ones who are really making it happen. That a lot of what we do, and you guys have some different varied roles, which is great. All of us end up feeding into those folks who are really making these direct connections with our campers, with the ones that we serve. And so a lot of what we do is setting them up for success. And here's the thing, not just success in terms of the job that they're about to do and the connection they make with campers, but, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like we know that most camps, most camp leaders, executive directors, program directors, think of their summer staff not just as, those that are serving, but as participants as well, right? This is an experience for them too, and is making a big difference. And we know that this experience builds, we said, some really important things. And these are stories. I'm just going to kick your action step off right here, everybody. These are stories to share with others. These are stories to share with, like we said, we sent this to a bunch of career centers, and your local pastors need to hear this. And sometimes their own parents need to hear some of these things that have happened, that can happen through these kinds of experiences. So you each have kind of some stories to share about things that you've seen or things that you do as part of your ministry, as part of your experience, that has made a difference in those summer staff members. And so this is a chance for us all to listen in and hear how some of those things have played out, and some of those things that you're doing to build into them, to build them up, to make them, again, succeed with what they're doing, and for sake of their own development, their own growth.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. I think you're exactly right. We all have these, working in the camp industry, these stories and touch points with summer staff. And we all know like how filling it is to get to work with, especially with young adult staff, and see how they grow and how they develop throughout the summer, and then how they go and change the world, because they do at camp and they do beyond. I think one thing that's really notable in every camp experience I've had is that camp does a really good job of building young adults with excellent social skills, the ability to navigate communities in a way that's intentional, that builds good relationships, that forms close bonds and trust between people. And I think that's one of those, we might call them soft skills, that camp builds of just through being at camp, that is maybe a bit underrated, but highly valued actually in practice in society, because they're the people you want to be around. It's those people who are good at starting a conversation, and good at listening, and good at finding out what makes other people tick, and then tapping into that you want in every space, whether it's a workspace or a community space. Like that's the sort of leaders you want, and they're really able to like build connections that make what in our capitalist world is all too often just work, makes it more than that, right? It makes it meaningful. It makes it a space you want to be in. So one example I have of this is oftentimes at camp, you are tasked each week or each summer on the broader scale with building a community with total strangers, with brand new folks. And every week, right? And folks who are in all different places, and you got to walk the line of like not overwhelming people, but also calling them in to be honest and vulnerable together. And our camp leaders, our staff, are the people who get the privilege of doing that. And so I know a couple of camp staff who have gone on to be teachers and social workers and other folks who like gather new communities together on a regular basis, whether it be groups or classes, things like that, and then use those camp skills And not just the get to know you activity questions, although those are useful, but also like the unstructured time of like, okay, now I'm sitting in a room with 20 new high school students, and I want this class to mean something to them. So more than just the curriculum, I'm going to pull out in my back pocket, hey, let's do this activity at the beginning of class. It's really going to help us connect, and it's going to help open us up. All of a sudden, that educational space for that teacher becomes so much more meaningful. It applies to life. Those students leave impacted by that in a way they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. I know a really good art teacher who teaches pottery and uses those camp skills in every class she makes so that she's able to connect with her students beyond just the material, but help them in their lives. And these are like high school students. And then watch them go on and do great things. And she got those skills working at camp. And so it's that type of soft skill building, social skill building, that I think our world needs and craves and people want more of.
I want to kind of build off that a little bit. I am also very in touch and understand the struggle with trying to get other people to come to camp as staff based off their perception that going to camp is only going to give you one set of skills, or it's not going to build you in the proper way that you think going to college and getting internships every summer is going to do the same thing. Right. For myself, I had friends that went to internships and maybe did nothing in them. They went and just got coffee for the person, or was doing like the busy work, and
they build resumes.
They build resumes, and sure, you might get a return letter, or who knows, but it's almost a guarantee when you go to camp, no matter what kind of position, if you're a lifeguard, if you're a counselor, or if you're a program director, you're all kind of building unique skills within those roles, but you're all kind of collectively doing the same thing in the same vision. Y'all leave camp with better creative problem solving skills. You leave camp with better communication. You leave camp with better like social awareness. You leave camp with better like emotional intellect about yourself and others. And just like one thing that I think plays into a lot of jobs in our world is just like really good team building skills. Like I feel like I've never been able to work with a team better than after camp. Like going away with that, I've been able to be a leader or be a follower within a team, or set my role within that, or help others set that role. And as a story, like we've had individuals that have worked at camp and also have been campers, like Katie Gus. She now is one of like the head officers or business individuals in like the sales force. And Asher Edwards, he's a videographer that tours with a DJ all over the world. We have Isaac Bowron, who's now a practicing doctor. Like all these different roles come out from camp. You're not always just going to be working with kids like you always think. You're also working with adults. You're working with whatever your vocation is. So there's so many different levels that it brings to you and brings value to your life. And one thing in today's age, you can always bet that AI won't take over camp. You can always count on camp. And even if your like job or your internship that you're kind of building towards in college, hey, that internship might get taken by AI, but you can still count on camp to build those skills to then maybe sneak in on the back door. You never know. Just saying, time and time again, go there, just like give it a shot. Maybe volunteer at a camp. Like camps would like have a volunteer for maybe a retreat or two, like during the fall, winter, or spring season. That's a good way to get introduced into camp. That's how I was introduced, was through a retreat season. So give it a shot. Try it out.
One of the things that I value the most about working with summer staff is giving them agency over the programming that we run. Agency almost feels like a tool that leads to all of the other things that both of you have talked about, right? Like confidence and critical thinking skills, and even trying to understand your own vocation, but giving the leaders of our programming ownership over what we're doing. And so sometimes that looks like really creative things. Okay, you're in charge of creating skits, or you're coming up with songs for our theme verses, or really anytime the opportunity that I can give staff to have ownership and agency is really valuable, because then they realize that they have the skills themselves and they grow in their own confidence. And then things get created that I would have never created myself, right? Or any of our other year-round staff. It comes naturally and organically. And then it's more fun for everybody, for them as a staff, and then for those that are participating in your programming. And campers feel that energy, and it makes a really big difference.
I'm thinking of, as you talk about agencies, you also have the agency to succeed or to fail, and like how much you grow from that, right? Like when you're given ownership over something, and sometimes you try something, it doesn't work, but like you learn from that. And sometimes you try something and it works really well, you learn a lot from that too.
Yeah, I hope none of my summer staff are listening to this, because actually one of my favorite things to do is to let them fail. Very genuinely. There are other people who feel really uncomfortable watching the staff fail. And we've had, whether it's chaplains or pastors or youth leaders or whatever who are around, who struggle to watch the staff fail. But I actually find it to be one of the most valuable. I find it to be really valuable, because what happens is that they end up seeing their own error, and you don't have to tell them, because they feel it and they see it and they understand it, and then they self-correct. And that has so much value to them as leaders, to be able to have that self-reflection, and to then workshop with the people that they were failing with, and to say, okay, that did not go well. So what do we do? Because you have agency and it's your responsibility. And so I think that that's really important. One of the things we talked about before is some of that, the discovering the power of agency came out of the circumstances that we were in. I'd said this before, that I'm a very small team, and there have been seasons where it's just me. And the reality is that I can't do everything. And I think sometimes we, depending on what your position is at camp, you feel like you have to do everything, or you have to have oversight over everything. And I was in a place where that just wasn't possible. And so then that pushed me to really have to trust and to lean on leaders, and they stepped up. That has been a really valuable lesson for me as a leader. And so I would just encourage, if you don't feel like that's you, I would encourage you to try it out, to give your leaders, whoever they are, to have the opportunity to have more ownership and agency. And I promise you that they will surprise you. They did me, and I'm really grateful for it.
Jess, that's really good stuff. And I love what you said about agency. But that's not just like, here you go, get it done, don't you fail. But it's in a safe place. And that's, there's support there. There's a parachute. I mean, there's still some bumps on the wrong road that aren't pleasant sometimes in life. But as those summer staff experience a rainy day that messes up the schedule, and it's still a great day of ministry. It's still maybe a better day, because the kids got to see you do something real, do those life skills and involve them, give them agency too, as the camp counselor towards the campers. And it all fits into resilience, I think, within that community, that they know that they're not alone. And they know that, behind all of these things, behind the agency, behind the structure, all the good stuff, is that rootedness in Jesus. This is sacred playgrounds, right? So I think one of the things that really excites me is the sacred part, that we're not alone, like even as people, even as communities, we're not alone, because there's a spirit, capital S spirit, right, that walks alongside us and goes and transcends even beyond us in planting these seeds and moving. We can't move mountains, but God can, and God does, even the mountains that this country needs moved right now, to bring back justice and righteousness and peace, dare I say, right? And, without going into that, the work of the gospel is good news to the poor in spirit, the poor in everything, and the disenfranchised, all those people around us, and those moments within us that surely are common as a young adult, if memory serves me, some years ago. And that resiliency. If you're listening to this, you are a transformative leader already and caring about this stuff enough to do something about it. And I believe, and that resiliency is something that we need you to have in the church and in the world. Capital C church, not a church building, but just like, God in the world, transforming the world into something that looks more like heaven every day, even in a broken world.
Amen.
That's our work. And that resiliency means adaptability. You think of resilience, right, as this stubborn, immovable thing. But at camp, you see that resilience, I think, is adaptability, that you know who you are when the world changes suddenly around you. Camp gives you that. An internship, maybe, yeah, it teaches you how to serve, like you said, like Aiden said, but a camp internship teaches you how to lead, and a summer staff role, the same thing. That type of adaptability and the resilience of knowing not just who you are, but whose you are, right? We've heard that phrase. Yeah. And that doesn't change. That means you do change your career sometimes. When I was a camp counselor, I had a kid, he was in confirmation camp, about 7th or 8th grade. And his twin brother, too, a great guy. And the young man I'm thinking of, he went on, he was a camp counselor later on. I got to be program director when he was a counselor through the years. And then after that, he started working for the camp as a young fundraiser, a PR guy. And then he, after a few years of that, he worked for a financial institution and helped to it was a Christian financial institution, and tried to bring the Spirit into the agency more. It was his role. He went to seminary. Now he's a Lutheran pastor in Minnesota, preaching a good word. And building bridges of peace in some places that are not real popular to build bridges of peace towards, but bringing the word of God alongside. That's resiliency. That I think through that, my friend Daniel's heart was very consistent. Though his career's changed, though the world's changed, no matter what your vocation, camp teaches you to listen through the rainy days, through the fun moments, and to know that you're part of something bigger. And that's really just fun to see, no matter where you're coming from, that it's different for every person. And our job is to help you find that.
Preach, Jesse. Amen. Preach.
Thanks.
So my organization, Lake Wapagasset Lutheran Bible Camp, has 3 camps underneath it: Camp Wapo, Ox Lake, and Wilderness Canoe Base. And our organization, our mission statement is places of grace forming peoples of faith. And I think that that's just a really important aspect of camp, is that this is a safe space to learn how to navigate life as we know it in this ever-changing world, which is very important, but also knowing that it's okay to make mistakes, and knowing that it's okay to say the wrong thing, or even what you think is the right thing, but it's taken wrong, or stuff like that, that this is a place of grace at the end of the day. And I think that what goes along with that is having leaders set in place that give staff members confidence, right, to make those mistakes, to explore what their faith looks like and explore friendships and all that. So I think one thing about resilient humans is that goes right into vocation clarity. I think that when we are able to learn hard lessons here at camp, or how to work hard, or how to get through awkward moments, whether it's you have 10 kids in front of you and they're all silent and you got to figure out a way to fill time with them. I think that all of those moments can directly impact vocation clarity. I know a lot of my friends, I live with 2 of them that I met here, were going to college to be teachers. And I can say for sure that working here at camp made it clear to them that they should be a teacher through the things that they learned with the resilient aspects.
You learn so much about yourself in an honest and grace-filled environment like that, right? Where it leads into a whole new world of possibilities of where you could be being called. So I really like what you said about, space to make mistakes, but also space to offer grace. It drives you towards finding where's God calling you to be in this world, where you don't have to worry about holding up a facade of professionalism, or this is who I have to be.
Yeah, seriously. I think it's just such a beautiful place where we get to be silly as humans in an ever serious world.
I was just thinking about the number of staff that I have worked with who have walked away from camp with this sense of belonging that they didn't know existed for them, and how there's something that switches when you realize that there are spaces you do belong. And then when you find a space, especially if you didn't think that you had one, which I feel like happens a lot, at least I don't know what it is about maybe the group of folks that tend to come to camp, but for people who didn't know that they had a place or that they did belong, who then come to camp and find a place where they do belong, it opens up their mind to realize that they do belong. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then it's like you have new eyes to see other people who don't feel like they belong, and you start to emulate that in your other spaces, whether That's with other kids. You're like, I volunteer here, outside of camp, or I work here outside of camp, and you're doing that there. And then if you're in college, then you're doing that in your own peer circles where you have new eyes to see other people who don't feel like they belong. Just as you were talking, Henry, and as you were talking, Jesse, that was something that came into my mind about one of the things that comes out of camp, right? That people have a sense of belonging. I know that was true for me. Like, that was part of my story, is being like, finding a place where all of my gifts and skills were wanted and uplifted, and space was created for me to explore vocation or whatever it was. And that really just shifted my whole life. And I think that's true for a lot of young adults who come into the leadership space of camp.
Hey, camp friends. The Sacred Playgrounds team is committed to keeping our podcast free because we believe that the impacts and stories of camp should be shared far and wide. But it isn't free to produce. We keep everything in-house, but even so, each episode costs us about $450 to produce. If you find these conversations, quick camp questions, and stats helpful in your ministry, consider buying the team a cup of coffee. We use the Coffee platform to accept your one-time and recurring offers of support. ko-fi.com/Sacred Playgrounds. Thanks.
Thanks, you guys. Wow. I appreciate your ideas. I appreciate your conversations even together. This happens. It's part of why platforms like this are really good, because we get to do this a little bit virtually. We have said in-person matters a lot, and here we are sitting around this actual physical table. And I'll even just disclosure it. So just a second ago, the mic cut out, except everyone around this table just kept talking because it was easy, right? And because we really learn from each other when we do this. So the idea, the hope, of course, is a couple of things. One, you are finishing these thoughts and ideas and questions and inserting your own. And if you are kicking off a conversation with like your staff team, or saving some of this for summer staff, mark all that, do all that, so that this chance to learn from each other keeps being really valuable. Here's what we're doing for our last chunk before we close. We did this one other time when we had some other guests come on. And so we've started to kind of call this the best of the best, a chance for us to say, like, here's something that our camp is just particularly good at, right? We have built a culture, a practice, something around that we are just really good at for some reason. And it's interesting for me. I can think about my time as a program director, as an exec, those ideas, those interesting things that I just wouldn't know, right? I mean, we talked, this group, we already talked about this, how easy it is to get siloed, right? How easy it is to do what you're doing it the way that you're doing. And it takes some intentionality sometimes to come sit around a table with some people who have some different thoughts and perspectives and ideas. And so what they're going to do is they're going to share something, some either area or practice or specific thing that their camp just kind of excels at and has been an important part of their culture and their practice. So that's what we're going to do before we wrap.
So one thing I think that we do really good organization-wide, but especially Camp Wapo and Ox Lake being just an hour from the Twin Cities Metro, is our church community and communication with our churches. We rely on our church staff. We welcome our church staff. We're able to welcome our church staff to come out for the week or even just a day or an afternoon with their campers. I think that is just such a beautiful partnership when church staff can sit in on a Bible study and get to see their kids in a different setting and their kids get to see them in a new setting. We might have behavioral issues with a camper and we get to bring church staff in on those issues and rely on them. We might have 300 kids on site in a week at Wapo main site. And so it's just a beautiful thing that we get to rely on more trusted adults to make sure that every kid is feeling seen, every kid is feeling known during their time here.
So that's valuable because that comes alive in two ways. One, it's cultural for you, right? Like you're saying, it has become an important part of your program. You embed them, you insert them. Part of it is kind of structural in that. I mean, because your camp model, like people are signing up, right? How Wapo works, and there's some camps that work like this, and some camps work, an age group a week or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're one of the handful that runs this church. Like they all come together. They sign up as a church. Here's your week. So when you think about a week, you don't always say, oh, there's 7th and 8th graders coming this week.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, hey, there's my home church, Farmington Lutheran Church, is coming this week.
Yes.
And so church from here is coming this week. You think about it like that, which is unique. So it's both structural and embedded in your culture.
Yeah. And because of that, kids get to come to camp comfortable, like a new place, a new food, beds, swimming in a lake maybe for the first time, but they get to have some piece of home with their friends and with their church staff that follows them to camp. Another thing about the church staff connection that makes us very fortunate is that we get to continue our relationships with our church staff in the off season. And so we get to go to different churches. Sometimes we're at 5 churches on one Sunday, getting kids excited for the summer, getting parents excited for the summer and getting them to buy in to why it's important to send their kids to camp. And we do that at the same time as we're going to colleges to recruit, but we know that it's important to go to our churches and to continue those relationships, and just get kids remembering their favorite song from last summer and reminding them that they can do it again this summer, that they can eat more s'mores and tell more spooky stories or do more devos, eat more camp food, stuff like that, just random things. But we know that getting them excited for camp in the winter is very important, and we're fortunate to do that.
One of the things that Covenant Point, in my opinion at least, and if anyone else from Covenant Point history or that works there now hears me say this, but I think one thing we do really well is silliness and stillness. It's within our mission, it's within our mission statement. It's brought up a lot during staff training. It's brought up a lot during whoever is not at camp and we're like trying to pitch it to someone else. It's like, hey, we're really good at doing stillness and silliness. I don't know if it's because of our location or it's because of our camp profile. We bring up a lot of kids from Chicago, which is a really busy city and not usually the silliest city ever. So it's like when they come up to camp and get to experience some kind of nature and unique community, they kind of let loose. They relax a little bit. They test out some new things and they get silly and they get quiet and still in our kind of very peaceful area. And I couldn't tell you the amount of times I've seen where we've played a big game in the field and then not even like 5 minutes after there's a camper and a staff member that's wearing like a pirate costume or something weird from the costume closet and they're praying together or having like a deep conversation. Like we're able to switch on that, like that silliness and stillness on a dime. It is unique and powerful. And that's something I feel like brings back families and kids all the time. And like when I say camper, that's just not simply anyone from elementary to high school. Like that plays really well with elders and young adults and other individuals that we have for like women's retreat or men's retreat or family retreat. We have so many different age groups, demographics that feel that same presence and power. And even we have 2 other programs that happen in the summer. We have trips, which we take kids out backpacking and canoe camping. And then we have an island in the middle of our lake that we boat people out and they spend a week on the island. By far, the island's the silliest one out of all of them. Like the island kids are kind of cuckoo, but we love that. And the trips kids are always shy, but then become a new person when they return with a newfound sense of self and community. But all of it's rooted with this silliness and stillness, which I think we hit it out of the park every year.
That makes me think about one of the things that I love about camp worship is being a bridge between someone's maybe traditional church experience and camp, like how we do camp worship, because it is that like the seriousness or stillness and the silliness. You're like bridging between what's like maybe developmentally age appropriate and like the energy that comes from being, either a 2nd grader or a 10th grader, and trying to bridge that between their experiences in worship and stuff. And so I love that and appreciate that. One of the things that I love about what we do at Red Willow Ministries is that we do an all camp out. So we have about 500 acres of land, and we have base camp where we do most of our programming. And we also have 5 or 6 different trails that people can hike. And at the end of some of those trails are camp out locations. And so we have one night in our programming that we do with every age group, and we do every week, where we ask the kids to put on their pajamas at like 3:30. We tell them, listen, you got to shower now, or you don't get to shower till after breakfast. And you can bring one stuffy and your pillow, and like we pack up all of our stuff and we go on a little hike. And then some kids pitch a tent for the first time ever. We kind of challenge kids to work together and say, you can figure it out, how to pitch a tent. Ask a friend if you need some help. And then we spend the rest of the evening together in one spot. And we get to do that because of the size of our camp, which I love and appreciate. We get to do a lot of things as a small camp that maybe wouldn't get to be done in other places. And doing an all camp out is a great example of that. And when I tell you, it changes the way that the rest of the week goes. It's like 2 different groups of people come into an all camp out than what comes out. And that's true for the staff, and that's true for campers who get to be in community together in a really different way for them. You have nothing but to be together, right? Because once you pitch your tent, that's it. You're like, okay, now what? And you get to be community with people who are in your cabin, who are not in your cabin. You get to talk to other staff people that maybe you haven't talked to yet. Sometimes kids are roasting hot dogs over the fire for the first time. It's a lot of first time stuff sometimes, which is part of the secret sauce. People grow a lot in the 8 hours. Most of them don't sleep, and that affects the week too, but it's one of the things that I love that we do and we get to do.
Well, one thing that Luther Crest really strives to do well, and I think we do pretty well, is building a culture where everyone who works at Luther Crest or is a part of our staff team knows our mission and prioritizes our mission and has that mindset of being missional with what they do. And so if you ask any summer staff I've ever worked with, they'll be able to tell you instantly what my favorite word is, and that's intentionality. And we talk about this a lot through training and through the summer, that we're not going to be able to equip people to respond to every single scenario necessarily, like specifically. But what we do really try to instill is buy into the mission. And so at Luther Crest, our mission is to inspire faith, community, and stewardship in God's creation. And then we dissect that and we talk about all the ways that we can do that. But it's really one of our commitments that all of our staff are able to tie all the decisions that they make in a camp week back to something that's missional. And so a couple ways this lives out in our staff training, we make it a point to say, why are we learning this? Why? What's the why here? How does this fit into our mission? What's the why behind worship? Why do we not use songbooks? Why do we teach our kids? Well, part of our mission is to inspire faith. And one of the ways we inspire faith is by memorizing scripture. And one of the ways we memorize scripture is by memorizing camp songs, right? So our staff are able to make that connections and tie it back to the mission. And that really forms a culture, right? I led with culture where everyone is bought in. So one of the biggest benefits of this is when you're faced with the hard stuff at camp, like the really hard stuff that could discourage staff. And that happens. It is going to happen. Our staff have the foundation that they can build on of like, this matters, and here's why it matters. And what I've noticed in my time at Luther Crest is that creates a really like positive atmosphere to be a part of. Like, people want to be there in the hard moments. And it's not like I'm being forced to be here because it's my job and I wish I was somewhere else. It's, this is hard, I acknowledge it. And also, this matters. This is part of our mission, and I know why I'm here. And it helps a lot with staff retention, right? Because people buy into the mission and they want more of it. They want to come back into that mission as well. And so, even 20, 30 years down the road, our staff are still bought into what we're doing at camp because we're so intentional about that.
Awesome. Love that, Henry. I can do hard things, at camp, I belong. I can make a difference here. I feel that. I see that. I can't wait to go home and show that too, with that new confidence. I mean, that's what we want every staff member, every camper to go home with. And one of the ways that I really like what Sugar Creek does, and I suspect the same happens at all of our camps, but we've developed this over a number of years where we shape the week to allow for individuation and an experience which connects the camp high, and you might say, those high moments of growth and belonging and things with the larger ecosystem of the church. So, for example, much like the camp out that you described happening earlier on in the week, we'll do some adventures, like that way throughout the week. But the peak worship service, I don't know if you all do a prayer campfire, where it's really intense, and tears are not the goal, but it can be very moving for a lot of people in a good way. And there's follow up after that. But that doesn't happen the last night of camp, which is probably a poor marketing decision on our part, because for-profit camps, you see not to stereotype, but you see a lot of times that they want kids to go home and no, it's never going to be like it was at camp. I need to go back to camp. Well, we want kids to say the second part, but not to oh no. Mm-hmm. We want them to go back down into the city, into the wherever, as faithful young leaders ready to transform the world by living like Jesus. And so the peak happens on Wednesday for us, and they go home on Friday. And so then they have all day Thursday to live into what does this mean for me, and Friday. And their counselors who know them so well by that point can really work with them and not always answer, but affirm at least the hard questions that the kids are asking. So the shape of the week allows all those different parts of the body of Christ, all those different personality types and gifts and extroverts and introverts to experience things in a way that they can talk about or ponder and just be affirmed in.
You guys, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of all them listening on the other end right now, thank you. Like I said, when we get around the table together, like we are physically, or they are, wherever they're listening, they are grateful. So thank you guys. I appreciate these perspectives, because as we look around the table, we've got different roles, different, tenures, you're from different states at the same time, be around on the same table together. It's really, really valuable. Blessings to you around this table and those listening as you think about it. And the hope, like I said, is that maybe there's a thing, a particular idea or a particular focus that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to take that thing and I'm going to borrow your word, Henry, be intentional about that for this summer ahead. I'm going to take this clip and we're going to take it home and make something happen with that. Activate something, focus on something that you might have heard your fellow leaders here sharing. That's the hope and the idea. Before we go, we are going to make sure to do our quick stat of the week.
Stat of the week. Stat of the week. Stat of the week.
Our stat of the week this week, or stats of the week actually, because it's 4 numbers. Here we go. The first stat is 40%. 40% of ELCA ministers who responded to the Camp and Church Leadership Project, 40% indicated that they had worked on summer camp staff. More than half of Lutheran bishops indicated that they worked on summer camp staff. Now, we asked similar questions in the Episcopal Church Leadership Project, and here's what we heard. 28% of Episcopal ministers worked on summer camp staff. And this is the big one. 78% of responding Episcopal bishops indicated that they worked on summer camp staff. I tagged Henry back in here. Henry, clearly, you've spent some time at seminary. You spend lots of time at camp. There's a connection here between time at camp, working on camp staff, and significant leadership in the church.
Absolutely, there's a connection. And when you start thinking about it, I think it makes a lot of sense that so many folks who go into and pursue church leadership have that root in summer camp, because summer camp is one of the few spaces where we really get to experience a community that is practicing what it might look like to live into the kingdom of God. We're practicing reconciliation with one another. We're practicing spaces of spaces of learning, spaces of community support, and we're living it out in an intentional way, but also in a way that we could see continuing to live out, right? It's not just for a day, it's long term. And so then you get a taste of that. You want more of that. You want to spread that to the world. And so these camp staff go into these ministry positions with a taste already of what it means to be living in a Christ-like space.
Amen. I'm also glad you found a way to work in the word intentional in there. Well done.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, one more big thank you, you guys. Really grateful. Say bye to everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye. Adios.
Thanks, listeners. If you have thoughts, comments, questions for these leaders around the table, or for some of these things that Camp builds, I don't think I said this site yet. If you want, some of these ideas, because you heard them say words like resilience and faithful leaders and things like that. Some of this came from this Camp Builds thing. You can head to sacredplaygrounds.com/campbuilds if you want like a poster or some social graphics or things like that. If that's helpful, and if we can connect you with any of these leaders around the table if you want to learn more about something they were saying. Mostly. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to catch every new episode. If this is helpful for you and your organization and your team, follow the link in the show notes to become a supporter of the podcast. Our theme music was written and performed by Weekend Picnic. Find their original songs anywhere you get your music, or visit them at weekendpicnicband.com. Sacred Playgrounds is generating insights, equipping leaders, and connecting partners to help camping ministries thrive. Learn more about what we've got going on, view current research projects, and connect with our team at sacredplaygrounds.com.